Welcome to Range World, the podcast where life, development, leadership, growth, intentionality, and experience come into balance right before your very ears. And now, here's your tour guide into Range World, the president of Get Life in Balance, Rain Kansman.
2, 1. Well, welcome back to Rain's World. We have another edition, and I have a special guest, Mr. Ray Makela, who's an author, speaker, and business executive with 25 years of management, consulting, and sales experience. At the Sales Readiness Group, or SRG, Ray oversees all client engagements and the delivery of sales and sales management training programs. He has delivered programs for clients such as Alcon, Norovirus, AIG, Cisco, Nielsen, Timken, Follett, Pandora, Ritchie Brothers, HERE, Infor, Galderma, and Walmart. Those are some big names, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Rain. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, we've been having a lot of fun helping out our clients and doing the work that we're doing, and excited to be here to chat a little bit more about it today.
Well, absolutely. And thank you for being here. So Ray's topic today is talking about how to engage your team virtually. But why this topic, Ray? Aren't we going back to normal?
Yeah, and that's a really great question to be asking these days, because I think a year ago, we were doing a lot of webinars and discussions about, okay, my goodness, what do we do right now?
Right.
How do we just keep the lights on? How do we check in with people? What are we doing for the next 3 months and 6 months and extending on? But now I think we really need to be looking at what does the new normal really look like?
Right.
And I don't think we're going back, at least not back to the way things were, day to day. And I think both on selling, what we're seeing is likely a blended model. So a lot more virtual, probably, maybe a little bit more difficulty even getting access in some cases, and a blended, way of selling. And I think that's the same for managing, where maybe we used to spend a lot of time out riding along, and frankly, a lot of time on airplanes,
Right.
going to either see our reps or going to see our clients. And I think that's going to change. I think, the days of flying to Europe for a 1-hour meeting, when now people realize that, boy, you can actually be pretty effective if you manage the virtual environment. And I would say the same with our sales teams, that we can do a lot leveraging virtual technology to stay engaged and on top of things, without having to take everybody out of the field for a day.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. I was looking at my planner from last year, reviewing and thinking at this time, there was a lot of fear going on and a lot of just, what is that? Because it was something that was so new. And I think it did force some companies into the idea of remote employees and virtual conversations, where they weren't going to go there unless something like this pushed that. So I think you're right on with that. I think you're right on.
Yeah,
So
and I'll just add, Rain, I think we saw it personally with our company, where, I mean, I love having the team together. We're very collaborative. We like seeing each other. And, frankly, there was a little bit of resistance to, well, what does the remote work even look like?
right,
And, what is it? Don't let a crisis go underappreciated or underutilized. And we realized early on we had to figure it out. And boy, the use of things like Teams and certainly Zoom and, the virtual platforms,
mhm,
but also we have a daily live virtual stand-up meeting to reconnect with everybody. We're having virtual lunches. We're
mhm.
having virtual happy hours with our customers. So, we really had to figure it out, as I think a number of clients, our clients did, how to engage. And in some ways it became very effective.
So I get the virtual stand-up meetings, almost like huddles, right? But you're doing them virtually. But tell me about the social hours, the happy hours, and lunches. What does that look like virtually?
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. We would typically do a monthly lunch, bring in and just share stories and what's going on. This is internally.
Yeah.
And so we really missed that. So we said, well, we're still going to block out the time. We really try to protect it. We're not yet catering everybody's lunch, but at least everybody brings their own lunch. And then we do the same sort of roundtable of personal and professional updates, what thing people are excited about. And then actually the last one of our previous sessions, we had some of our current facilitators join, kind of our extended family, if you
Right.
will, to also come in and share, what's going on. So it's a combination of personal and professional, but it gives us a little bit more time, and then also just chit chat. Now, I will say, with larger organizations, I think they're doing that pretty effectively, where they're even doing virtual breakouts, and so you can pop in and out, and much like you would do in a cocktail hour, where you're joining a couple of different discussion groups over the course of time. And we saw that a lot with sales kickoff meetings, where they were having a lot of virtual breakouts to keep the informal dialogue going as well.
Wow, I like that. I like that. So we're talking about methods that you found. Are there any other methods you found effectively engages a team virtually?
Well, I think there's a whole topic around, the cadence of management, right? When we think
Okay.
about our one-on-ones, when we think about our sales coaching conversations, even how we're doing sales coaching, that people were reluctant. It's like, well, I can't go out and do my ride along, or I can't meet for lunch. And I think that's an excuse. And frankly, I think in some ways, virtual has given us an opportunity to do even more coaching and visibility, because we can join those sales calls a little bit easier, right? Or we can listen to a call recording if your
Right.
organization is doing that. So I think making it really clear that no, we're going to have those one-on-ones, and we're going to engage, and we're going to turn our camera on, and just like we're sitting across the table, and we're going to do these coaching calls. And Rain, you and I have talked at length over the years about the importance of having a cadence to observe, and then sit down after and have dedicated time to debrief and really talk about that sales call and the selling skills and what to improve going forward. Well, there's no reason that can't happen today in the virtual world. And in fact, could probably happen more often and easier than, again, when we used to have to spend a whole day going to meet that individual in the field.
Yeah, I love that, Ray. I love that. So, I guess how did you and your team end up making that shift? Because I remember you doing webinars early last year about this kind of stuff. So you guys were kind of front runners on this, for at least for someone like me. Um, so how did you make that shift so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate that we'd been doing virtual training for a number of years. It's always been, one of the delivery methods, one of the components that we're using with our clients. But it was a fraction, right? A smaller percentage.
Right.
But we were pretty comfortable with the virtual technology, and had optimized our programs already for either in person or broken up into virtual. So from that standpoint, I think we already spoke the language, so to
Right.
speak, and it was maybe a little bit of an easier move. And then the other thing is, I think we spend a lot of time thinking about what that needs to look like and how we do it, because our clients in a lot of cases were leading us there, saying, well, we need to figure this out, and can you help us, and here's what we're trying, and here's what's working and what isn't, and even what does it mean to have an effective call, with your customer. How are you showing up with energy and engaging them and those types of things, and how does that apply to your internal meetings, your coaching, your management, your leadership as well.
Yeah, oh, love that. Love that. So you got a chance to collaborate even with your own clients on that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Very cool, Ray. So I guess last question I have for you, where would be, I've got a team, I'm trying to figure this out. Where would be a good place for me to start?
Yeah, so and this is also a fun one, because I think it's either on the sales side, how do we engage with our clients or with our employees? And we created this very simple model. We call it the 4E model, but
Okay.
kind of things that hit us upside the head, if you will, or really stood out as being different in the virtual world. And the first E is really the environment.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of people figured that out. Well, we got to get our lighting and we got to get our sound, but really taking the time to break that down and say, well, what does it mean to show up and look like somebody you want to talk to, and that you're not the witness protection program, right, with the lighting behind you, or you don't have the webcam looking up your nose,
Right.
or blurring out your image. So I think there's a lot to that, and certainly there are a lot of tips and tricks out there, but I really think you need to nail the technology, the platform. I think when you're engaging with your employees and you're, coaching and leading them, you need to consider that that employee is your customer. How do I make this as engaging an opportunity as possible? And we say turn the camera on. And I know people have Zoom fatigue and they're in front of the camera and all that, but if it's your one-on-one, or you're setting expectations or having a coaching conversation, you want that to be as personal as possible, and you want that individual to really understand and get the feeling that you care about them and they're the most important thing you have on your agenda,
Right.
versus we're multitasking, we're doing our email, we're checking our phone, cameras off, we're walking around the room. Not very engaging. So I really think we need to lean in, look them in the eye, figure out where the webcam is, right? So we're going to
Mhm.
actually look at the camera, not at the screen or other
I love
screen or the thumbnail, and engage that individual in the platform. And I think that's super important, kind of table stakes to get that right. And then showing up with energy. And it seems kind of obvious, but we've all been there where you may have 6, 8, 10 hours of back-to-back virtual meetings, and they do get pretty repetitive,
Right.
and the attention span wanes and the tendency to multitask and everything else, right? So how do we really get the energy for our employees to say, this is the most important thing I'm going to do today? And I say, I have a standing desk, so often I'll stand up so that I can be a little bit more energetic. Tony Robbins jumps on a trampoline. If you
Oh,
have to do some air squats or run up the stairs, just get the blood going, just saying, hey, I'm going to take 10 minutes and get my head in the game, so that when I engage with this employee, I'm saying, you matter, this is important. I really want to meet you there and have a quality conversation. So there's a lot you can do there, but part of it is just not getting burned out, right? Making sure you're
right.
taking care of yourself, and you're showing up with energy for that individual.
Wow. So some great points there, Ray. And I want to sit on that last one just a little bit, because I always felt it really, I guess, amplified it during virtual, that if I called the meeting, I mean, I called the meeting, right? I asked the person to that meeting, then I need to be ready for it. And in this way, you're right. There are times virtually that it's not the same. I'm an extrovert. And when I get in alive in a room with people, I mean, my energy just goes. So I didn't worry about it. But it wasn't the same virtually. So I love those ideas for getting my energy up before I get on the call.
Yeah, and we get this a lot, Ray, and I'll just build on that. That people say, well, how do I get my employees to turn their camera on, or how do you get the customer to turn their camera on if they're not used to it? And I think that used to be a lot harder a year ago.
Yeah.
And now, we're doing it with our grandparents, we're doing it with our kids. The barrier to entry, I think, has gotten lower. But
Right.
I find 9 times out of 10, if I turn my camera on, they're going to turn their camera on as well,
Right.
or they're going to say, hey, I'm having a bad hair day, or I'm dropping my
Right.
kids off or whatever. Great.
Right.
But to be able to see with your customers and engage and look them in the eye, and like you said, are they engaged, or do they care? And with your employees as well, saying, no, you know we're going to have this one-on-one, and I want cameras on because it's that important. So let's make sure we're really doing that, so that we're not using it as that breather where we're trying to accomplish a bunch of other things.
Yeah, and I think you hit a couple things right on the head. We're talking about engaging our team and our customers or clients virtually, and it really comes down to something that, at least in my eyes, that you said there, and showing them that we care. And these are small pieces of things. We do only have a certain amount of time with them, so let's make the most of it.
Absolutely. And I there are two more E's, if I could just finish out
Yep.
the acronym or the model there. But the next one, that's what reminded me of it. And I think it'll likely resonate with you, Rain, because of the work you've done and conversations we've had over the years. The third E is empathy.
Yeah.
And even though we talk about, oh, we should understand where our customers are, or we should, have consideration for our employees. I think now more than ever, we need to spend that extra time thinking about, where is this person coming from right now? What's going on in their life? Oh yeah, they have small kids at home, or their wife, got laid off, or
Right.
they're worried about their job, right? So having that empathy to say, wow, what's going on from their perspective before you jump into the agenda and everything else, I think it goes a long ways to building the relationship, making a stickier and a more quality conversation, and certainly with our customers, to build that rapport and that relationship. I'll just say one more thing about that. I'm curious your thoughts. I heard a podcast with Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and he was talking about empathy being a differentiator for Microsoft going forward. And I really love what he's doing with the culture and the way he's thinking about that, because his point is, if we can think more like our customer and put ourselves in their shoes and really think about their situation and problems, we can help them solve those problems in unique ways that just pushing a product never would, right? Or that we never
Right.
could as just a salesperson. And it's really an interesting way of flipping it around. So, I think we hear a lot about empathy these days, but especially engaging in our employees, I think we need to stop and think, well, where are they coming from right now, and what's going on in their world?
Yeah, and I certainly fell into a trap early on last year, because what I got, things started falling out, things got quiet, and I started looking inward versus outward. And so there was a few times where I was calling thinking that, okay, wait, no, I got to get business from you. I got to get business, and their business is hurting, and not not getting that. And it took me a little time to transition that way and just go, okay, what do you need? Even if it's nothing, do you need to talk? Do you need me to listen? Whatever it is. Cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valuable context to, check in first without any expectation, right,
Right.
of immediate order or response. But I think we saw a lot of that last year. The successful companies that just said, "Hey, want to check in and see how you're doing,
Right.
and is everything okay?" And oftentimes that means, "Yeah, call me back next month. I'll have budget," or they'll
Right.
think about you later. But I think you really need that go-giver approach, right? You have to pay it forward without expecting its immediate repayment,
Yeah.
but just, how are things going, and what can we do to support you?
Love that term. And you said there's one more E?
One more E. So the final, and actually we've talked about it throughout, but is just engagement.
Okay.
And so, with your employees and your customers, but really thinking about, what are we doing consciously to keep that conversation engaged? What are those checkpoints, or those questions we're going to ask? And certainly in a sales call, you always think about, well, I have some discovery, but what are you really hoping the customer will do? And how are you going to engage them, right? To take that action and not necessarily close the deal, but maybe it's just share some information or give you an introduction, whatever that is. So how are you engaging them? What's your plan to do that? And I think in a manager, rep, or employee conversation, thinking about, well, then how are we going to draw them out into the conversation? What are we really trying to resolve or address in that call? And not doing all the talking, certainly, right? But
Right.
getting them to really think, be thoughtful. And a lot of that goes back to the blocking and tackling. Sometimes you got to ask the question, you got to shut up, and you got to listen long enough for them to actually formulate a response, right? And think through, how they're going to respond to that.
Yeah, I love that. So, oftentimes I think growing up in sales roles, we learn to do that with our customers, but we're not always as good with our team members on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say, I don't think we see enough of it in the sales role either. We talk about it, we practice it. The good salespeople do it, um, but it is a skill that needs to be practiced. And I think especially for managers and in coaching, we want to give our experience, we want to tell them how to do it, but oftentimes we need to, we talk about the 3 A's: ask first, assume the best intentions, and then actively listen, right? Step back and listen to how they're approaching it or their thought process. So we learn a lot, and often we get to a better outcome.
I love that. And especially the part in you taught me that a while ago. And I love that piece, especially the middle piece. I think if I assume best attentions, I'm more willing to be actively listening, right? Because I get all that other garbage out of the way.
Yeah, which is tough, right? It's a
Yeah.
lot easier to either assume they're incompetent or assume they don't know how to do it, so I'm just going to tell them. But if we assume they're trying to do a good job, now let's figure out what's getting in the way or how to help them. Yeah, it really does change how we show up, right? And kind of how we lean into those conversations.
And builds engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Ray, thank you so much, my friend. Conversations are always engaging, and I appreciate the thoughts and ideas because I picked up a lot of them. Thank you for
This
your
is
time.
a really fun topic, one we're really passionate about, and I appreciate being asked and the opportunity to speak about it, and love to continue the conversation.
Yeah, you got it. And Ray with the Sales Readiness Group, check them out. They've got some great programs and ideas and concepts, and they'll build them specifically for you. Thank you, Ray.
All right. Thanks, Ray.
You have a great day. This has been another leadership lesson from Rain's World. If this kind of learning whets your appetite, leaving you wanting for another helping of this kind of content, visit me at getlifeandbalance.com.